Hello, friends. This is Adrienne from Spanish by the Book, back to bring you another really, really good read that's going to help you and your family fulfill your dream of becoming bilingual easily. You're not going to have to drag your kids out to lessons or classes. You're going to spend time at home or on the go doing what you regularly have to do, reading good books like the one I'm going to share in our masterclass today, Big Little Grande Pequeño by Leslie Patricelli. So, what can we know when we're talking about Spanish by the Book? Spanish by the Book helps parents and caregivers launch daily Spanish conversation with their children, with other people in your learning group. And what's the launch pad for this? Bilingual children's literature and literature based activities. And I'm going to show you how using just this little book. So here we are on the launch pad for Big Little Grande Pequeño. And you're going to see this adorable little fella, maybe little guy, either way, a little bald headed sweet baby who just goes through all these experiences with opuestos, opposites. And let's see what we have in the book. Just what does the book bring itself? Because I like to share with you resources that just are rich and simple and easy. And you can just bring that vocabulary right into your Spanish conversation time in your learning group. Well, Big Little Grande Pequeño has, first of all, a sturdy, oversized board book format. It's not going to be a little flimsy book that doesn't really hold up, and it's not a tiny book that's, muy pequeño, difficult to see. It's a sturdy board book. It has English and Spanish text on every page. So there is an English version, and you can just buy that by itself, but the Spanish English version is easy and simple to look at. So that's one of the features. And it has 21 double pages with opposites. 21 pages in a board book. It's increíble. It's a lot of information. And there's one page towards the end that just has more big and little things. And I can't wait to show you how you can kind of duplicate that and make an art project or a craft where you collect big and little things that you see and describe them in English and in Espanol. In addition to the page with more big things and little things, there's 36 objects total. So you know you're going to add at least 36 vocabulary words, just naming words for things in your world to your speaking Spanish vocabulary just by reading the book. And it comes in bright primary colors with bold, simple illustrations. It's one of those books that can start with really young, but can go up to kids 7, 8, 9, 10, depending on where you are. And you just can include everybody in your language learning. So that's what the book brings. But my next thought, as we look at how beautiful it is, look at that. Bass drums are big, very simple sentence. Las tamboras son grandes. Whistles are little. Los pitos son pequeños. And you see the beautiful reds and greens and blues with black trim. Not a lot of action, so you can focus on just what's going on there. Bass drums are big. I bet you can read that in English. And eventually, I'm going to show you how to just lay a layer of Spanish right on top of it. So, you've got the book. You see the value of the book. It's wonderful just by itself. That's great. But what does Spanish by the Book's teaching resources add to what you have? Because I don't want you to just read the book and come away with just what they have. I want to show you how to extract all kinds of vocabulary and add all kinds of vocabulary. So I'm going to provide for you more opposites. In addition to the 36 vocabulary words, I'm going to show you lots of different resources so that you can use that same language pattern that you see in the book when you see these other opposites that I'm going to offer you. And of course, I'm going to teach you how to describe the objects by color. It's a wonderful thing to just be able to identify by color. Picture that in an airport, you say, my suitcase is yellow. That is really, really important to be able to do that basic skill. Then I'm going to teach you some questions to ask as you read the story. Because if you were reading this book in English and you were conversive and comfortable, you would just be having what we call those dialogic conversations, just going back and forth and talking. but it's a little difícil when Spanish isn't your first language. So I'm going to give you some questions. You're going to write them down or stick them on a sticky note or just decide this is the question we're going to talk about when we read this book today. So get ready for me to just give you little talking points. The next, I'm going to give you a little bit of grammar talk, just un poquito, no mucho, so that you, as the adults, the learners, and the leaders in your language group can understand some of the grammatic points. So when you see them in other places, you go, aha, hay un conexión. And so I'll just give you a little bit of grammar talk because it's important. And there's grammar in this board book. It's amazing. Then I'm going to give you some extension videos on Grande and Pequeño so that you can see that concept in lots of different places. And if your learners want to be on a device and they want to be listening to something, I'm going to give you the greatest playlist ever so that it's adding to your Spanish speaking vocabulary. Then the next thing I'm going to give you is how to talk about shapes and sizes, which is the beginning of describing things in comparison. Lots of vocabulary to describe the shape, to say the size, and I think you can use that outside of talking about just the pictures in the books, of course. I'm also going to teach you an easy to use comparison question. Not just is it big or is it small, but when you look at my resource, you're going to go, oh, that's a good question to be able to ask as you're comparing things. So look for that in my resources. And of course, I like to give you ideas for crafts and games. So I want you to have some tracing and some sorting activities because there's going to be so many things. Sorting them out is good. And some arts and crafts activities. That's all of what's not in the book, but I'm going to share with you so that you can use this book, Este Libro, as your launch pad for lots and lots of conversations. Finally, I'm going to give you my master mix and switch language learning system. I don't want you to just randomly go through the book. I want you to have a system that you can apply to every book in our Spanish by the Book library so that there's a way that you are going in and looking for the language. So let's talk a little bit about master mix and switch. I want this to become so easy, so familiar. Master mix and switch is like a path that leads you through a forest, kind of like a language learning forest that feels a little overwhelming, a little big, and you can't see maybe to the other side. Master mix and switch is just a way that you're on a path and you know that you're on the right track. So let's talk about each part of the master mix and switch language learning system. In the master stage, what are you doing when you master the book? Let's say you're reading Big, Little, Grande, Pequeño. In the master stage, you simply read the English only. Just read the English with your learners. Cuddle up on the couch, wait at the dentist office, sit in the living room, and read the English and let your learners and yourself get really comfortable with the story so that they know it. Have conversations about what you see. Just get comfortable with the story in English. Then you're going to talk about the illustrations in English, describe the pictures, use those concepts of is it big, is it small, what color is it, what shape is it, why is he doing this, where are they going, what do you think about that? Have those conversations so that when we begin to have those conversations en Espanol, there's already a layer of learning. Your next step in the master stage is to identify those objects in your world. You're going to go out, and when you see un elefante, because maybe you see a picture of an elephant or you see an actual elephant, then you say, huh, the elephant is big. And you use the vocabulary and the phrases that are in the book when you are outside of the book. Muy bien? Finally, you're going to do that as long as you want, read the book as many times as is comfortable, but then you become a mixed stage person. You're in the mixed stage. Your group is ready to get some language learning going. In the mixed stage, in the master stage, I want you to prepare a little bit for the mixed stage. Your readers and your listeners, they might be just in the master stage, but you're a little bit behind the scenes, preparing for the mix during the master. All that means is you're reading my instructions, you're going through my resource guide, you're deciding, hey, I think I'm going to do this in 2 more readings. What else are you doing during the mix stage? You're deciding which words to mix. And mix, I'm going to show you, mix just means changing and adding and mixing in Spanish and English At each reading, you're changing the text a little bit, replacing English words and phrases with the Spanish words. You're not going to read both the Spanish and the English all together. That's going to confuse your listeners, your readers, but you are going to say, hey, this one word appears every single page. This week, I'm just going to replace this word in Spanish. This one word is simple and concrete, and we see it all the time. I'm going to replace this word in Spanish. My learners know this word in English, so I'm going to start to say the Spanish word for it. And you're just going to replace English words and phrases with Spanish. Just go in and out, changing and adding your mix at every reading so that your learners are so comfortable that you begin to talk outside the book. You're talking while you're visiting, you're using those Spanish phrases as you come and as you go. During the switch stage, and remember, that doesn't have to happen fast. That can happen as long or slow or however long you want to. In the switch stage, you're going to trust that your listeners know the story. You've read the story in English, you've talked outside the book, you understand what's going on. And so trust that they know the story. You're not going to have to retell them every fact. Ignore perfect pronunciation pressure. There's no pressure for perfect pronunciation. Use the English as a reference. You can talk about what you read in English. Just go back to it as you begin to read the Spanish and you're just reading the Spanish. Capture the essence of the story. Don't worry about that perfect word for word translation. Spanish doesn't always translate like that, but get the idea of what's going on and talk outside the book some more. What if we read all these books, all these books in Espanol? What would your language learning journey look like if you pulled all the vocabulary from these books and more into your speaking vocabulary? At Spanish by the Book, you can see how that's going to work. Send me an email to find out. Ciao.